You're very welcome.
All right. We have, oh, Christian is here. She's coming. Hi. Christian, good morning. Thank you for being here. I see that you're muted.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. So we'll see. People are coming and going. So we're going to see what happens this morning, but I'm going to start. So, gonna share my screen a second here. No, not there. Okay. So here we are, day 3 of this challenge. And we are here with 2 of my incredible friends. And let me just hold on a second. I just can't seem to be able to find what I'm having here. So we're going to go back to what we did yesterday. So welcome back, everyone. I'm glad to see you here. I hope you had an incredible day yesterday. And yes, it was Valentine's Day, but it was a day to actually love yourself and love life. That's what the theme of this 5-day retreat is about. It's about loving yourself and loving life. So I am, hold on a second, bear with me. I am just trying to get this thing going. Here we go, share screen. Here we go, we got it. All right, so we were talking about multiple things yesterday. The last couple of days, we talked about the importance of following yourself. That's what this whole retreat is about. How do you heal yourself following your intuition? That's what we're going to be talking about today. But yesterday, we talked about how to track your own needs. If you remember, we basically had we talked about how you established your relationship to your needs as a child when you were a little infant, and the way your parents, caregivers related to you is how you relate to yourself. So we talked about physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual needs. And along the lines of physical needs, we kept it really simple. It's the basic needs of your physical body. You're hungry, you're thirsty, you're cold, you're warm, you're feeling stress, overwhelmed, too much light, too much noise. Whatever that is, your body at all times is giving you signals and how to pay attention to regain balance and equilibrium. Now, in the context of healing from breast cancer, we really are talking about following your own inner sensations, and today your own intuition and how to regain balance. The basic premise of this 5-day retreat is really about you trusting that your body knows how to heal. Most of us stand in a way, and when I say this, it's not a conscious standing in a way, it's our belief system, and it's also some of our past conditioning that stand in the way. So if we can get out of the way, and when I say we can get out of the way, it means our mind is out of the contradiction of the balance that our body is seeking, healing will happen. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. The more intuitive aspect of healing. Physical needs, emotional needs is when you follow and track your emotions. And we talked a lot about how in this society, day and age, we may have been stifled. Basic emotions, sadness, anger, joy, happiness, peace, they're easy to track, and we make it really complicated because we start having an argument and we debate the reality or emotional reality. Truth is, when we're feeling something, if we can allow it to flow, which means energy and motion is really the definition of emotions, we allow the flow to happen. No repression, nor overexpression. It's finding that place in the middle where you really know what you're feeling. And we talked about feeling, naming, and expressing as the 3 steps for emotional balance. And we also talked about the mental aspect of your being. The thoughts you have create a reality in your emotional and physical body. So it's all intertwined. We are a whole being. And when you are thinking a thought that doesn't feel good, your emotions are starting to have generating some hormones. That was day one when we talked about the stress reaction, the fight, flight, or freeze response. And those hormones get lodged in your body, and your issues, and I wouldn't say our issues, including mine, live in our tissues. And so we talked about how anger lives in the liver, sadness in the heart, anxiety in the stomach. It's not a big rocket science moment here. It's been done, it's been researched a lot, the correlation between stress and lodging stress into certain organs that then turn into illness. So as we release emotions and as we align our thoughts with what we want, there's energy being generated. We talked about this book yesterday, The Hidden Message of Water, where this researcher put words into jars on top, I mean, not on top, but in front of a jar of water. And each word generated a balance or imbalance of energy in the jars of water. So we basically talked about that. And then spiritually, we talked about connecting to the greater reality of what this life is about. We are not alone. And it's a concept of the mind. And that's what today we're digging into, a concept of the mind to think that we are alone and we're disconnected. You know, I basically give you a simple example of how the world spins around, the earth spins around its orbit every day. None of us get up in the morning and say to ourselves, let me make this happen. We don't. The sun rises every day. The universe is holding itself in a principle of balance, and we have nothing to do with it. So that same principle is really what we have access to when we tap into our spiritual self. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And here we are. Before we go there, hold on a second. I want to ask you, what is your relationship to spirituality? And just take a moment and think about it. Because what we do is what we learned. And often, if you're like me, I grew up in different environments. And at some point I was exposed, being French Canadian, I was exposed to a lot of Christianity, I want to call it religiosity. So religion that is really very dogmatic. And so it served a purpose, but then it got to a place in my life where it was too tight and I needed to expand beyond that. So if you take a moment and just think about what spirituality means, what does it mean to be in a relationship with your higher self? What does it mean to be in a relationship with your deeper self, your higher consciousness? These are all the words that we used yesterday when we talked about our spiritual self. And then the next question is, do you believe that a part of you is eternal? So in a moment, we'll look back at what soul means. What does it mean to be in a relationship with our soul? Do you believe that there's a part of you that was here before and will be after this physical body, this physical experience at this time and place? And when I'm asking you these questions, I'm actually not asking you to change anything. I'm not asking you, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just asking, I'm sort of like, these questions are opening your mind in the field of possibility, because that's what we're going to be talking about today, the field of possibility for healing. And how do you relate to this part of you? The reality is, when we don't feel good, breast cancer is a serious illness, as in any other life-threatening illness. It pulls us in. We shrink, we get really small, and we get connected, and not in a bad way, to our physical reality. We talk to doctors, we get diagnoses, we look at scans, we get treatments. All of it makes us be in this physical body, and most often not in a very pleasurable way. So it's really easy to forget in those moments that we're connected to something greater. Our world and our view of the world shrinks to these very small moments. And sometimes that's all we need to do, is focus on the small moments where we don't have the energy to expand beyond that. And yet at the same time, our soul is always there watching. And so we're going to talk about how that happens through our intuition. And I'm going to be talking about a book today that was very instrumental in my healing process. The first time I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it continues to be a good tool that I use. And so we're going to be basically talking about this today. So I'm just wondering, my two friends are here, and I'm going to just throw them into the mix and ask them, do any one of you want to share anything about how do you relate to your intuition or what higher consciousness means to you, or anything you might want to say along those lines in terms of spirituality? And it's okay if you don't want to, because I didn't really prepare you for that.
Yeah,
Hi,
I
Sean.
would like to,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Elena.
thank you. I would like to share. I grew up in former Soviet Union and as an atheist. But for the last 20 years, now I live in the US, and I've connected to. I found yoga and connected deeply with spirituality and my higher power. And now it's became such a big, huge part of my life. Yoga, through yoga and meditation, I found that connection, and it feels so good, and it guides me, it protects me, and my life completely changed after I found it.
Thank you for saying this, Elena. The first day I talked a little bit about how what brought me to the US is actually a long time ago, like 30 years ago, was a yoga center. I moved into a yoga center when I was younger. So yoga has been a big part of my life. And yes, that's the basic premise upon which I talk about all this intuition, higher self connection. So I'm so glad we have that in common.
Yeah,
And yes,
I even became a certified yoga teacher.
you did. Awesome. I actually had a yoga center for 10 years. So yes, right along those lines. Did you want to say something, Christian?
Yeah, hi, ladies. I just wanted to share. I think I grew up in a Christian home. So as a child, spirituality to me was like to pray and to constantly be in asking mode. And then when I kind of found my own path as a young adult, it turned into more of a real relationship of like discovery. And I discovered meditation and also yoga and cleansing my body. I suffered from a lot of eating disorders as a young girl. So as a young adult who then was discovering like this other greater relationship with spirituality and like my spirit and my soul and beyond this realm, even the connection I had with my body was part of that. And I'm still exploring it, obviously, but that's played a huge role. Like I can kind of tell where my spirit is depending on how I'm treating my body. And I've kind of realized that happens for me.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's like I start to pay attention, like how am I feeling and how am I treating myself?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, first of all, for being very vulnerable and sharing this with us. And that's what, we were talking about yesterday. Our body is the entry door for communicating some of what we need at a very basic level. And it's also the entry door for our soul to connect to who we are and for us to connect to it. So yes, every time we're out of balance physically, through our food, through our stress, through breath, and I really do believe, it has been my journey as well. Like I literally started connecting to my body through food, movement, meditation, way back then. So yes, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it. Okay, so let's see if we continue on our journey of looking at what today will bring. So when I talk about letting our soul be our pilot, I mean literally taking or having our mind, and I'm not saying turning off the mind, I'm talking about just having our mind take a back seat when it comes down to making large decisions. Now, I talked about the last couple of days how healing is a soul crisis. Healing is really a call, I believe, a call of our soul to go deeper, to grow into a deeper place in who we are. And yet at the same time, as I said just a few minutes ago, when we're in pain, and especially in the light of a life-threatening illness, our hormone stress response are really kicking in and our thinking shrinks. So letting our soul be our pilot is really a commitment that we make, and we have to make every day. There's no other way around this healing process. I believe that I can't say that we chose this or I chose this, but I can say that I have the power within me to overcome that. And through the power of my own intuition, which is what we're going to look at today. And in fact, let me see here if I can just do this. I want to first give a definition of what soul means. The spiritual or material part of our human or animal being that is regarded as immortal, like I talked about before. So immortal means it never dies. And I found that definition in the Webster dictionary. So it's kind of interesting that it's actually defined and it's written in something as serious as the Webster dictionary. And it's also emotional and or intellectual energy or intensity, especially as revealed in a work of art or artistic performance. And it's also the part of us that connects to the field of higher consciousness. So I keep talking about soul, and I talk about our higher consciousness. I use many words to describe the same thing, but it's the part of us that knows without knowing in the mind, right? We can hear words and we can have visions and we can have sensations, which is basically what the 4 levels of intuitions are, or deep knowing, but it's not something that you can sit and explain why it's happening. Like you can have an image in your mind, and I think all of us have had that. Like we can think of someone. So the thinking of someone is seeing someone in your mind's eyes, which is the part here between your eyebrows. And then the next thing you know, you see this person like an hour later, half an hour later, or during the day. Or you can hear words, and that's sometimes a little more tricky, but it's kind of like, let's say you ask a question, you know, you're in a state of meditation and you ask a question to the universe. You call it the universe, life force, whatever. And then all of a sudden there's a word that pops in the back of your head. That's where it comes from me. I know for different people, it's a different thing sometimes, but for me, it's usually in the back of my head. I hear a word or just a sentence. It's very simple. Intuition is not a book that comes downloaded. Sometimes it does, because you can write a book based on your intuitive knowledge. But it's like those quick moments that you may not pay attention to because we're really busy, we're functioning, we're talking to people, interacting with things. And then we don't know, but it just comes in. So that's the auditory or the clear audience intuition. There's also something called clear sentience. And that's really what we call a gut feeling. And I think all of us could relate to this. Gut feeling is where you see something, or you enter a room, or you interact with someone, and maybe they tell you something, and your gut feeling tells you otherwise. Like somebody says, could be as simple as that you say, hey, how are you? And the person has a smile and they say, oh, I'm doing fine. But then you have this gut feeling that what they're saying is not quite true. That is clear sentience. A lot of people have that. It's like the gut feeling level. And then there's something a little bit more abstract. The 4th one is called clear cognizance, which is the ability of knowing. Like I believe that the great geniuses tapped into that field of possibility where they knew things. So clear cognizance is like you have a knowing that no one can explain. So like some people call it a divine download or a download from the universe. It's sort of like all of a sudden you know something and nobody has told you, you just know it. So these are the 4 levels of intuition. And we're going to go into this in a little bit later. But the reason I'm bringing this in is because our body is a conduit. Our higher self that connects to the energy of the universe, universal life force, quantum field. So if we believe that our soul is eternal, we believe that we, in some ways, can tap into that field of knowing, a lot of knowing, not just the mind and the physical body, but the field of knowing. And that comes through the different senses that I just described and defined. And that's really how we get guidance and how to go about our life. And a healing crisis requires guidance. And what's so tricky about having a healing crisis is that a lot of people are involved in telling you what to do, giving you their opinions, downloading their emotions onto you. And there's a lot of data backup, right? Medical data backup to tell you what has worked. Now, it's not because it has worked for everyone that it has to work for you. So I'm going to go in and just now talk. Whoops, I guess I just missed a couple of slides here. Hold on, bear with me. Here we go. I am here, debunking the soul. Okay, so we talked about the field of quantum physics and how we relate to our higher self and spirituality. Now, I'm going to go into the next topic, which is really talking about self and healing. So there's something very interesting that I found on the web, and it's actually from the National Library of Medicine. And not only do we have access to this field of knowledge, but it also has an impact on our health, right? So there's a strong scientific evidence that suggests that people who have a regular spiritual practice, call it worship, service, activities, or feel the presence of a higher being, will find strength and comfort, and then will in turn become healthier and or have greater healing capabilities. Now, this has been researched. This is an abstract that I found in a medical journal, and I was very pleased to see this because they basically see that there's positive correlation between spirituality and a decreased rate of stroke, cancer, cardiovascular disease, hypertension, etc. So when we talked about the stress response on the first day, we talked about how we basically, our body doesn't provide to our central organs, like the heart, the lungs, digestive organs, what it needs to replenish and heal, right? When we're in a constant state of fight or flight, everything goes to the extremities. So we can either run, we can fight, we can hide, disappear, play dead. These are the options. So when we have that response that is a chronic response, eventually what happens is the central organs are depleted. So when we go into a spiritual state of being, we actually disengage that fight, flight, freeze response. And that's why I believe that this is, the research that proves that is basically saying, as you calm down, which is really what aligning with our higher self is, going to a larger state of being, all these functions, physical functions, can come to a balance. We allow for healing to happen. It's that simple. That's how I explain it. Now, we talked about yesterday prayer and worship and meditation and nature. And we talked about different ways of connecting to our higher self. Not all of us, especially when you go through a life-threatening disease. I repeat this word because life-threatening really means fight, flight, freeze response. And you're going to find yourself go through this in and out. At first, it may be there more. I know a lot of women have reported to me their level of anxiety and how high and unmanageable it was for days. I know mine was like this for months. And so anxiety means fear. And sometimes the idea of meditating is just inconceivable. You cannot think of it. And so moving is the next level. So that's why I have whatever bypasses the mind helps you center. So my two friends here have shared with me that yoga is a tool that they use to center. So yoga, Tai Chi, for years I couldn't do these. I could do yoga and I could not do slow yoga. I could only do active yoga because my mind was so busy and my body, my electric system, my nervous system was too charged to slow down. So it would take a very vigorous practice for me to eventually be able to slow down, breathe, and then center. So often in the yogic tradition, they do yoga as a preparation for meditation. But I include to this, some people don't relate to yoga. So I include running, I include walking in the woods or walking outside in nature, swimming, anything, dancing, whatever lifts your spirit is what will connect you to spirit. So that's a practice. This is a commitment. Every day when you choose to do something, one thing, it doesn't have to be complicated. You make that commitment to reconnecting to your higher self. Now, I will show you a little diagram in a minute of what it means to align with your higher self. But we go in the central channel, which is the part inside our body, where there's 7 centers of energy. And I'm sure my friends will know what I'm talking about. But basically, they're called the chakras. So we go from the first to the 7th, and the 7th is connected to the top, which is something that opens up like a funnel that receives from the universe. So when we're burning all this physical energy where we sometimes feel stuck, physically, emotionally stuck, then we can elevate eventually. The energy calms down and rebalance itself, and we have access to what's called the higher centers, the higher channels. So now, why meditation? So I'm talking about connect to your higher self through movement, so your mind, human mind, can calm down, so that your spiritual mind, right, the wider consciousness opens up. So meditation is a practice. It's a practice of sitting, but you can also do walking meditation. It's a practice of slowing down, deepening the breath, and noticing. And it's noticing physical sensations. So the 4 levels that we talked about for the last 2 days is what we're going back into. Noticing physical sensations, noticing emotions, noticing the story that we hold in our mind. And the noticing is the connection to our higher self. It's called the witness consciousness. It's like you see yourself sensing, you notice the sensations in your body. You know you're feeling something. That's a hard one. I think in meditation, they talk about a lot, the challenges in being the witness consciousness of our emotions, and then the story that we attach to it. We talked about how the mind is a meaning-making machine. We have an emotion. It gets complicated because we have a story attached to it. And then the story runs like a movie. And the next thing you know, we're no longer here. We're somewhere else. So why does it matter when you have a life-threatening illness like cancer? We're going to do an experiment in a minute. But why does it matter is because your story will take you out and down. So it's challenging. I remember the first conversation I had with my oncologist, where he's convincing me of what I should be doing, the line of treatments, very aggressive interventions. And as I'm listening to him, I feel like my whole body is shutting down. My emotions are going crazy because I'm angry. I'm trying to talk to him and engage in a conversation, and it's not going 2 ways. It's going 1 way. It's him pounding on my head, years of research that have demonstrated what has worked and what hasn't worked, and he's convinced that he has the truth. And there's no room for me in this conversation to have my own truth. So, hold on a second, we'll get somebody coming in. So basically, that is very challenging to tap into my inner knowing, and for all of us to tap into our inner knowing when somebody comes in with the facts, with logic, with reason. So when we're meditating, we do that to ourselves. We hold a story, and then we're basically convincing ourselves that this story is true. So before we go into our experiment, I'm just inviting again my 2 friends, and I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so we see what's going on. If you have anything to share in that respect, like that challenge in connecting to your higher self in your practice, and how you know that sometimes you can sit for 30 minutes and you don't even know where you have been by the time you're done.
Can I share my experience,
Yes, please.
Chantal? Well, because we are all busy, busy women, especially right now, right? It's very hard for me in the beginning. It's very hard for me to find time and allocate that time for meditation, to sit quietly down and do meditation. I almost have to force myself to do that, because in my mind it's just boom boom boom, I have to do this, I have to do this, and it's all urgent, right?
Yes.
But when I actually do that, and that's why I like to start my morning with yoga practice, and at the end of yoga I always do approximately 20-30 minutes of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that when I do that, oh my God, my mind is much more quieter. I feel good. I feel so grateful and happy, and I'm more productive. I'm more organized in my day, and
Yes.
it's really, really helps.
Yes. And thank you for saying this. I actually, what you just talked about is how the mind, it's that, what I was saying, the mind meaning making machine, like all of a sudden everything is emergency. If you keep following that train of thought, you end up being very busy and running. I talked about yesterday, the gerbil on the wheel, like you just kind of keep running, running, running. And then we lose that perspective, which is the stepping back and looking at what really matters, what's important, but not urgent. And that's what meditation does, is having exactly what you described. Like you take a step back and all of a sudden you calm down, and then you go back to what you're doing. And usually you probably have more focus and, right, clarity.
Right. And focus, right now, focus for me is very important because I'm losing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I'm glad you're saying this, because a lot of the time we talked about yesterday how some of the treatments and any kind of life-threatening illness or any sort of physical imbalance calls our attention into what's happening, and then we do lose focus. And so there's something about being able to calm down everything so that the perspective, the bigger, wider perspective can show up, and we are able to actually focus on what needs to happen and what's most important and let go of the rest. So thank
And
you.
especially right now, we spend so much time on social media, on our computers, and there's so much information
Yes.
that I feel sometimes that it's my mind is overload, and
Yes.
therefore I cannot concentrate.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
meditation really helps.
Yes. I often refer to my meditation practice as a cleaning of the
Mind.
cleaning of the mind. Um, did you want to add to this or anything without pressure, Christian?
Hi. Yeah. No, I've been meditating for about 10 years now.
Wow.
And it's kind of interesting that it's when I'm going through the most stress that I don't want to meditate, which is when I need it the most, right?
Right.
I'm actually going through a bout of stress right now. So I'm having to really force myself and almost like treat it almost like another chore or another job I have to do every day, even if it is for just 5 minutes, because it truly does. I mean, it doesn't magically erase our problems and our feelings, but it helps us deal with it in such a more wise way, I think, rather than just reacting from the emotions and from the feelings.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for saying that. Yes, absolutely. 5 minutes a day. I know when I went back to school, that's all I had is 5 minutes a day. And I remember this guy that I quoted yesterday called Dr. Rick Hansen. He wrote a book, the book called Buddha's Brain. And he talked about that, like 5 minutes a day, with the day where he committed to doing meditation for the rest of his life. He said, even if I do 5 minutes, that's good enough. Because it's rewiring the brain. It's like basically saying, I know that I can build that muscle. It's like building a strength, building strength in the muscle. Like I'm going to rewire my brain. I'm going to keep going there. And I'm affirming by doing this that I actually have the power to do this. So that's what we do when we sit. It's just, sometimes it's like we sit and we don't know, it's 5 minutes, it's gone by, it's madness in here, and yet we have sat And that wiring of the brain is actually what we're doing. We're affirming that. So thank you, both of you. So I am thinking, let's see here. Do we have, okay, so you talked about this. Okay, I'm sorry. I was just watching, Elena, what you said about in the chat room. I didn't take a minute. I just took a minute there. Okay, so I'm going to invite us to have a moment together here. We are on social media. Hold on a second. I have to connect this back to the, here we go. We're here on social media, and there's one thing that happens on social media, and the same thing happens when we talk to people. The same thing happens when we meet important people that are stressful, or the experience is stressful. Is like our attention, and I'm pointing here in the forehead, goes forward. And so I'm going to invite us to go back. So that part of the brain, like the attention from the eyes and the forehead that sort of goes forward as we try to understand, I'm going to invite us to go back into that, the back, what I call the back of the brain. So if you feel comfortable, I'm just readjusting myself in my chair so I can be upright. So we're just going to take a moment, and the focus is what we've done the last couple of days, is just first to notice. So if you want to close your eyes, and I'm going to close mine just for a little bit here. And take a deep breath. And I guess I'm just going to let go of that slide for a second. Okay, so align your spine, sit down. So the sitting is important because the sits bones are sort of the foundation. When we stand up, our feet connect to the earth, but when we're sitting, the chair we're sitting on is like the ground underneath our sits bones. So see if you can just plant those sits bones. And imagine that you are stretching all the way to the crown of your head, and there's a wire that holds you on the top of the head, and just lengthen your spine, like stretch from the inside out. And then take a breath, lift your shoulders, roll them back, release them, open your mouth wide, relax your face, yawn if you need to. And exhale through your mouth. So do this maybe 2 or 3 times. Just lift the shoulders, roll them back, let them go down, and let everything settle as you exhale. So see if you can find your breath and bring your breath in deeper into your belly. So what we've practiced the last couple of days is that deep breath in, 4 counts, and it goes in, 2, 3, 4. You hold it, 1 and 2, and exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, deep breath in. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it for 2. Hold your shoulders up maybe, and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm just going to stop counting for a moment, but you can do the exact same thing. So that's one way to focus your mind. The mind is like a search engine. It always wants something to focus on. So focusing on your breath can be that simple. It's counting 4 in, holding it for 2, and exhaling for 6. And then I'm going to go through the last couple of days, a little quick review on what we did. So you want to plant your feet on the ground. You want to feel your feet on the floor. And imagine you have a wand, like a scanner, that you can scan your entire body from head to toe. So just imagine the wand has light. And as it goes from the crown of your head slowly through your forehead and through your brain, literally, things are relaxing. You're taking note of what you're sensing and feeling. It goes into your face. Maybe you relax your jaw as you notice the muscles at the back of your neck and your throat, the neck, especially the throat. And if you need a little adjustment, imagine you're smiling with your ears. So bring your head back and up, and that will relax your shoulders. And then just relax your chest. Imagine you can soften and draw your shoulders up and back a little bit. Well, your shoulder blades are coming in closer towards your spine. So that's the heart center. That's the chest, and it's also the heart center. And then go back into your solar plexus. Lower your front ribs and lift the back ribs up. So take your front ribs in a little bit, lower them, take them in, and lift the back ribs up. And then settle into your belly, sits bones. Your pelvic bowl is, our pelvic bowl is a center of emotions. And it's also where we have a gut feeling. So when I was talking about earlier, the experience we have when we enter a room and our gut tightens, that's where it's living. This is our gut feeling. This is clear sentience. That's where it comes from. And then lower down into, from the sits bones, the back of your thighs, the calves, the feet, all the way. So imagine you go past the floor into the earth. So if you're not on the first floor, you're in a building, just imagine drawing a line from the tailbone into the ground, all the way. And then you may have to use your imagination to the center of the earth. Continue deepening your breath. So we're going to connect to the earth, like you can draw a line and attach that line to the center of the earth. So your breath is slowing down. You feel more weight towards the lower part of your body. Your feet are grounded. And then from the center of the earth, you're going to draw another line that's going to come through. Like the center of the earth is fire. It goes through the different levels of bedrocks. And you're drawing energy back up. And you're going to trace your way back through the feet, the legs, the sits bones, the belly, the solar plexus, the heart center, the throat, the space between your brain to the crown of your head. Now imagine the crown of your head opening up like a funnel. And it opens up to the sky. It opens up to the universe. And then you just let that happen. Imagine a funnel of light coming from the crown of your head, traveling in the center of your body and going back into the center of the earth. And take 2 or 3 deep breaths, just imagining that. And you breathe. There's no way you can get this wrong. No way you can make this wrong. No way bad things can happen. You are in your own space, in your own center of knowing. Now, as you are sitting here doing this exercise, this practice, see if there's a question you have, something you would want to know more about. Question that seeks an answer. Could be about your body. Could be about your life, about relationships, anything. Just a question. Let that question pop into your mind. Don't search it. Don't search for it. Whatever comes up is right. And then let that question settle for a minute. And then see if there's an answer that comes to you. Don't look or seek the answer. Maybe an image will show up. Maybe words you will hear will come through. Maybe a physical sensation. And maybe just a knowing. So like a knowing in your being of what to do next. So the answer doesn't have to be a full answer. It could just be the next thing to do or a way of being with the question. So just keep 1 more minute with this. And if nothing shows up, it's okay too. Just let yourself rest, settle, breathe, let the question be there. And sometimes that answer can also happen fast, like a fleeting answer. And then take a deep breath. And I often do this, bring your hands together in front of your heart. A lot of you have seen this. It's kind of like a bowing to the higher self. When your hands come together, in Chinese medicine, it's saying the little heart in front of the big heart. There's little hearts in the middle of the palms that connect through the arms back to the heart in your body, your physical heart. And then just breathe and lift your shoulders up and soften the space between your shoulder blades. Then you're connecting to the universal heart. So when we do this, we honor whatever we receive. We say thank you. So you can just hold your hands, or you can just do a gentle bow to your own hands and release the hands. And when you're ready, just take a moment and you slowly open your eyes, and then you see what the light, whatever light you have in front of you, you want to let it come in. So take a moment there and just let yourself be here. And then we're going to take a moment and reflect back on that experience. So when I was calling about hearing words, I was talking about clear audience. When I was talking about seeing images, I was talking about clairvoyance. When I was talking about gut feelings, I was talking about clear sentience. And when I was talking about that knowing that lives inside of you, I was talking about clear cognizance. Often that's the hardest one to relate to. So it doesn't have to be complicated. When I talk about intuition, I'm not talking about, the ability to be psychic and predict the future, even though these are the senses that we usually use to see in the future or create the future. But for now, I'm just curious if either one of you have had an experience, and it's okay if you haven't, and how this was for you. How was it to first have this moment of meditation, and then if anything came up, like you don't have to share your question, you can simply say, yeah, my question, and then I had an image and I don't know what it was or what it meant or anything. Is there anything that comes up?
Well, I will let Christian go first now.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Elena. Thank you. I just got this image of my whole body, almost like a body scan. Yeah. And it was the middle part of my body, my digestion, which is stuff I'm dealing with this past week.
Yeah.
It was just like highlighted. Nothing other than that. It was just like highlighted.
Yeah. It's okay. You can let her talk. It's okay. It's part of life. She's asking you a question. You want to take over, Elena, and maybe you come back, Kristen? Or you okay?
Yeah, I'll let Elena share.
Well, Chantal, that was a wonderful experience. Thank you so much for providing this to us. I really enjoyed the grounding exercise, which I realized in my practice, I never done it before, like imagining that line that going to the center of the earth from my spine. It's felt so good and so grounded. I usually focus on the higher power above me. And yes, when I asked my question, and it's about this business direction, if I should continue going with that or I should not, the answer came right away. And I think it's more like feeling, intuition.
Yeah.
Then it's before I even answered it, it was yes. It felt so great. It was
awesome.
Very good. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And yes, I want to say something about what you talked about, the line going down to the earth. It's called a grounding cord. So I spent 2 years, and I can talk to you outside of this conversation about with this woman. I spent 2 years with this woman studying that, how to ground, how to have our own intuition and how to ground through it. And so the grounding cord is actually from the tip of your tailbone all the way to the earth. And it's really connecting to our physicality. And it's also being held in safety. It's helping build the first chakra, which is about home, health, community, and finances. So these 4 aspects are what we build when we're little kids, little babies. The sense of safety and the sense of being able to relax in our body comes from that first year of life, and it's building our first chakra. So if anything got uprooted in your life, often what happens is we try, and often in many spiritual practices, people try to go up too quickly. And yet that's sort of like the foundation for all the other centers. So if we can ground that, then we get clearance, or we feel calmer. The nervous system, all the autoimmune diseases are related to the first chakra. So it's kind of going back and grounding through physicality. And I'm so glad you said that. Thank you. And I'm so glad you got an answer too.
Oh my gosh, you explained it so well, Chantal. Thank you so much. And I definitely will use this exercise in my practice.
Thank you. You're so sweet. Thank you, Elena. Christian, did you want to add? Did your daughter, is she giving you a little bit of space there?
Yeah, she went. She needed to say something.
Of course.
So that was really beautiful. Thank you. I feel like I've been avoiding connecting deeper this week in particular. So the meditation kind of really slowed me down, like slowed my mind down to just kind of really connect with what's happening in my body right now and what it's trying to tell me. So I feel like I definitely need to meditate a little more today, but it was definitely like that reminder of like, oh, you're trying to do too much at the same time, and you're trying to move too fast. And right now your body's asking you to do the complete opposite.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And thank you for, sharing. And when I wanted to say something about what you said earlier about, I just had a sensation, like my attention was brought into my digestive system. That's intuition right there. Intuition is not complicated. It's like one word, one sensation, it's that, exactly that. Like your spirit called you back to that part of your body and said, hey, pay attention. You got it. So there's no way to get this wrong. I mean, that's why I like doing this, because it's taking, and that's why, the title of this day number 3 is really about letting your soul be your pilot, because our soul lives through our body. Now I'm noticing that time is flying by and I want to be able to get through. So it's all good. The fun part is when we actually do a meditation, we are in that space of slowing down. So let's see. I think we did this and we talked about intuition, which is the ability to understand something without the need for conscious reasoning. So this exercise, this practice we just did was exactly that. Not reasoning, not arguing back. The 4 types we went through: clairvoyant, sentient, audient, and cognizant. Now, I want to talk about a book that was very instrumental for me in my healing process and continues to be. Dr. Kelly Turner wrote or did research around the world. She interviewed a lot of people and that's why the book is so interesting and very powerful to read. People that were pretty much in all kinds of conditions. It wasn't just breast cancer, it was different life-threatening illnesses. And some of them were really, at the end, were sent home to die. One in particular, I remember that stuck with me. It's one story in the book where this man was sent. He was 3 weeks away. That's what the doctors gave him, 3 weeks. He was living in Japan, and he was all hooked up to all kinds of stuff and all kinds of treatments that were pretty invasive. And he basically was living in this huge building in Tokyo, I think, and decided that if he had 3 weeks to live, he was going to go outside every day and see the sunrise. So he would drag himself up to the top of the building and look at the sun. He would go there before the sunrise rises, and he would watch the sunrise. And then one day he noticed that there was this bird crescendo going along with the sun. I don't know if you've ever noticed that I'm a very early morning person, so I have noticed that, especially when the birds are coming back. Right now they're gone, but they're actually starting to come back. So there's like few birds at dawn, and then it goes up, 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 and then there's like a crescendo. The sun rises, and then they all calm down and they go, you know, do their bird business for the rest of the day. So he got very curious. He was actually, I think he was an engineer, and he started doing some research. Now, mind you, the guy has 3 weeks left. He's doing some research on what's happening in the morning. Why is that time so powerful for birds to start singing? And he discovers that the highest level of oxygen is in the morning. The highest level of powerful, what's called life force through air, the air we breathe contains life force called prana in the yogic tradition, is in the morning. So he also started making sounds. And then he noticed that the sounds were connecting to different parts of his body, in his body. And now if we again think about the yogic tradition, there's different chants that go with the different centers of energy, the different chakras. So he started doing this without knowing anything about this, right? Now, mind you, 3 weeks, he's starting to feel better. He gets an intuition about eating certain foods, and then he starts eating that food, and then time goes by, and he continues his journey following that intuition, and eventually still alive, going around the world. He made it more than 3 weeks, goes around the world and teaches people this thing that helped him heal, which is breathing and sounding through the different chakras. Now, the reason I'm saying this story is because in the book, Dr. Kelly Turner identified 10, what did it call, factors that people had in common that help people recover. And this was only one of them. So the reason I'm talking about this book is because I'm talking about how you will find your way through your healing process. There isn't one size fit all for everyone. Some people have written a lot of books about nutrition, diet, and healing cancer, and that has worked for them. And I'm not saying it's not good or bad. I'm just saying whatever feels right to you is right. Some people have connected to a faith community, and that's what helped them heal. Some people have decided, okay, I'm going to cut loose and just go for it and do the things that I've always wanted to do and have this passion, this life lived with purpose. And that's what helped them recover. So there's these 10 factors, and I posted the cover of the book there. So you can actually, it's 9 factors that will help, that have helped. And I just basically wanted to provide this as a resource so that you actually know that there's data, scientific data behind what I'm saying. So in the next day, and it's a practice, not just for today, hopefully for the rest of your time, whatever that is. And you know, yesterday we talked about the power of the mind in recreating our reality, but here we are. Practice of paying attention, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, the clues. What's happening? What information are we getting? And I have already told you my story. So we talked about people connecting to higher self through prayer, meditation, places of worship, nature, following spiritual leaders, whatever works for you, but have a commitment to having a daily practice. And then I'm talking about this, I'm just putting a slide in for what we talked about before, which is the heart. The heart center is, they call it the seat of the soul in the yogic tradition. And because breast cancer lives in the heart center, I really do believe that it's a deep call of the soul to come and love yourself like you have never loved yourself before, even if you don't have breast cancer. I am a deep believer that on this time in this planet, we are called to grow deeper and expand into self-love. We cannot give what we don't have. And so whatever we try to do, build a business, be a parent, have a job, whatever, if our tank is not filled, and what fills our tank is that self-love, and self-love translates into food that we choose, movement that we do, people we connect to, places we live, work we do. So if we don't have that muscle built in, of really loving ourselves. And loving ourselves means we love all of who we are, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. That's the fuel. That's your soul fueling through your heart, your entire body. So tomorrow, I actually had a thing about keeping track in a journal of what you notice if you want. If that works for you, whatever works in helping you keep track of what's happening, what your intuition is telling you, what your higher self communicates to you, how it speaks to you. For the longest time I had journals. Currently I don't take the time to do this. I do other things, but it was my way of connecting and hearing what my higher self had to say through my words. So we went through the assignment for tomorrow, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. What feels right is right. That's what the bottom line of that book, Radical Remission, was about, is following that trail. I call it the trail of breadcrumbs, one thing at a time. Like for you, Elena, to say, yes, that business is what I want to do. Then you take the next step. And for you, Christian, to say, my belly, my digestive system is calling for attention. It's needing balance. It's seeking something. That's the next step. So that's how we keep track. Sometimes it goes by fast, and it's a muscle that we develop, keeping track. But if it works to have this in writing, you go ahead and do it. Now, I'm just going to take a moment. Let's see, we're a little over, it's 4 minutes over. If anyone, I'm going to just stop this slide for now. And if anyone wants to share, oh, we lost Christian. She had to go. So Elena, do you want to say something about what's with you today? If you want to, I don't want to put you on a spot. You've been very generous.
Well, I just want to say thank you, Chantal. This has been such a great reminder about self-love, how we need to practice it on a daily basis and start our day right. And when we practice self-love through yoga in meditation or walking or connecting to the nature, whatever we do, especially for breast cancer, for prevention breast cancer, it's such a great reminder to focus on that and clear that energy around my heart, and opening it up and breathe fully. We so forget about it. And thank you so much for this reminder. It's been wonderful.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for saying what you just said. In fact, clearing the heart center. That's it. It's like clearing every center, but in particular, self-love is really what will help pull apart and make more space up and down the channel, all these centers, but also around the heart. And yes, it is a preventative measure, because the less baggage we carry around the heart, the less tightness there is, the less constricted the heart is, the more health and flow and vitality there is. So thank you for saying this. So everyone, if you're watching this after we're done, if this is the replay that you're going to be going later on with, I thank you for watching. And we are going to be live again tomorrow on day 4. We're going to talk about purpose and how to align your purpose with your passion. And why does it matter? Because your purpose lives in your heart. So there has been a trend in this conversation from the day we started about how the heart is, how you follow your heart is really how you find your inner guidance and how you go through manifesting the life you want. And now, why am I talking about this? Because if you have been diagnosed with breast cancer, and like I have for the second time, I take this very seriously. I don't mess around at this point. I know that there are things that I'm here to do, and I'm determined to making them happen. And I'm also inviting you to join me, because saying yes to life beyond breast cancer is actually a decision we make. It's not something that is made for us. And I believe that as a human being, we have that power, ability to respond. Responsibility means having the ability to respond. So one more thing, I'm going to post on the Facebook page the link to book an appointment with me. And why would you do this? If you notice today, the conversations we've had between the 3 of us have an impact. When we are being heard and we feel received, something clicks inside of us. we're not just talking to the wind. Again, it's that thing about the mind flying by and making us believe. So when I speak with you, when I hold space for people to, when people are talking to me in a session, I hold space for that higher consciousness to live. I've been trained, I'm a coach, I'm a social worker, all the background, you can see this, we talked about it the first day, but really the point is I am here to hear and hold space for you to hear your own inner guidance. So it will be posted on the page. Until tomorrow, I hope you practice physical, emotional, mental, spiritual connection, hearing your intuition. And I thank you for being here. Elena, Christian, thank you, Elena, for holding space with me. And I will see you, everyone, tomorrow. Have a good day.